Greetings and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Salem News Channel. I'm Stacy Washington. We have a lot of news on our plate today, so let's dive in. We have the Israeli military announcing Tuesday that they have launched an attack on Yemen's Sana'a International Airport and other civilian sites, claiming they were used by Houthi militants. The strike came 2 days after a ballistic missile launch from Yemen by the Iran-backed Houthis landed near Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, Israel. Here you can see what the location looked like before. And then here is what it now looks like. The Israel Security Cabinet approved a plan Sunday night to gradually reoccupy all of Gaza and hold it indefinitely if no deal is reached by May the 15th. So, plans for the operation call for the Israel Defense Forces to flatten any buildings that remain standing and displace virtually the entire population of 2 million people to a single humanitarian area. The alternative to remaining in the humanitarian zone is for Palestinians to leave the enclave voluntarily for other countries, in line with President Trump's vision for Gaza, according to an Israeli official. Such departures could hardly be considered voluntary. No country has agreed thus far to accept displaced Palestinians en masse. Israeli officials claim there are ongoing negotiations with several countries on that front. That they are removing individual Palestinians who are speaking with the Israelis and providing intelligence on Hamas. Those individuals are getting visas and being flown to alternative countries who are accepting them on a case by case basis. But we need a larger outflow in order to accomplish a rebuild of the area. Joining me now to discuss is retired Army captain and author of The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas J. Ernest, welcome back.
Stacy, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
I'm glad you're here because no one I'd better rather talk to about this than you. Your perspective. I want an update, sir. What do you make of these latest developments?
What we see going on in this part of the world, Stacey, is actually progress. We see the back and forth between the Iran-backed Houthi militia and the strategic planning by the Israelites. As you can see, when the Houthis bombed Israel, there was no warning. But when Israel did retaliate and bomb their airport, displacing maybe 20 million people that could use that main airport, they actually warned them and let them know that was going on. So Israel's doing this strategically, empathetically, and doing a great job of trying to bring this to an end. Now, the challenge is with Hamas, they're not budging, they're not giving, they're refusing to release these prisoners. So this is a very, very bad thing for this war because we really want to bring this war to the end. And after 1 million people have been killed or injured and hurt on the battlefield, we need to find a way to bring it to the end. But Hamas is not cooperating any way, shape, or form. And Iran's influence with the Houthi militia is making it much worse.
So, there's a bit of negativity that seeped in, and it's not unusual, it's not unexpected, but we're fighting back against it. And that is the overall feeling among some Americans that the number of live hostages that are still being held by Hamas, that number by Israel has reported their intelligence says there's 24. Hamas doesn't really communicate. There are also 35 remaining bodies that need to be exchanged and given back to the Israelis for their families. We have some Americans who I someone called into the show last night very angry, saying that he can't believe I still believe any hostages are still left alive. But the Israelis do have credible intelligence on the ground that says there are. How do you handle the kind of it's just like a sinking feeling the longer this goes on that we're going to get very few people returned alive here?
To my surprise, I really would have thought that this war would have winded down when the Trump administration took the realm because we had significant progress when we had that second deal come into play. But then the Hamas took back what they had been working on and said, hey, we're not going to fulfill our obligations. And then Israel had no choice but to advance their military to go forward. From a strategic standpoint, Hamas is leveled. They have no fighting power. They are just, backed by a militia, backed by insurgents. There's really no power they have to make a front or to advance a war front. So right now, it's looking pretty dismal for Hamas. But on the other hand, Israel wants to do this strategically so that they can get those 24 prisoners that you mentioned back, because obviously the number one thing is to get the return of human life that these terrorists took on that awful October 7th day. So I'm hoping, and we hope from a military standpoint, that they can keep playing this game of risk, this game of strategy to advance their battlefield operations, to play tactics and strategies that we can elicit the best execution to return these hostages back to their families.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I think the big deal here is first of all, we can't lose hope. We've seen some pretty miraculous things happen in Israel and the surrounding areas, and so we can still hold out hope that 24 is the minimum number of live people that we'll receive back. the Israelis will get those people back to their families and begin the process of healing. The bodies that remain also return so that those families can have closure. But then there's the second most important thing, and that is the new plan they've described, which involves removing these people, these human beings from the site so that they can ensure that they've gotten rid of every single Hamas soldier. And I love your characterization of them as being, they're kind of a shell of what they were. They had 30,000 soldiers. Now they're down to, a couple hundred. They're very, very weak when it comes to resources. They don't have rockets flying out of there every day. I mean, it's a much different scenario. They really destroyed their own operation by attacking Israel on October 7th. But then there's what happens afterwards. President Trump has moved on to working to get our tariffs down, and there's so many issues on America's plate. We really can't be the primary nation to manage the rebuilding of Gaza. That should be something that the Middle Eastern countries, along with Israel, manage themselves. How do you see that going?
As you mentioned earlier in the program, no Palestinians have been offered to be housed or taken in by any other nations in that area. And that's not a good sign, because you would think that these fellow sisters and brothers in that region that share the same cultural background would want to take in these refugees, people that are suffering greatly at the backbone of their government. One other point that you made was about taking back the land. And Palestinians have always been a very proud people. They are very, very adamant about keeping their land and staying in this area. So when you see Israel pushing forward and advancing the notion that they are going to take more land, remove Palestinians from this body in Gaza, and then occupy it to remove Hamas, this is a sign of strength that shows the Palestinians that your government that you selected to run you, whether you selected them by vote or if you were taking them because they were imposed upon you, by supporting Hamas, you're going to lose not only your people, your body of land, but also your future of your culture and your embodiment of your people. So right now, I'm seeing good things if it comes for Israel. And as a military strategist, I really hope that they can bring this to an end to limit the loss of life, both for Hamas's insurgents that are left, so that they can get them off the battlefield, imprison them, and get them off of the battlefield, but also for these people that are suffering in that region.
Yeah, and I also think, and this is just a total aside, but it occurs to me because of the discussions that President Trump is having with the president of El Salvador and then internally in our country about standing up supermax prisons or places where the most dangerous individuals can be housed, that people who have committed acts of terror like October 7th really shouldn't be imprisoned in Israel because it makes Israel a target, and they need a third nation or separate location for these individuals to be housed and imprisoned so that they can't bomb Israel under the guise of getting those people back. I think that's a future discussion, obviously, but it's something that President Trump is leading here in our hemisphere, and it might need to be discussed there. Close us out here in the last couple of minutes, Douglas. Thank you.
That's a great talking point, Stacy. And as you mentioned, we didn't want to put these prisoners from Hamas inside Israel like they've done in the past, because when it's time to negotiate to let the hostages go, they then advance the notion that they want to get out these 900 people at a time. I mean, Israel was releasing sometimes hundreds of their prisoners that were terrorists, that were convicted of terrorism, for a handful of hostages that were innocent people taken from their land, their home, their farms, as concerts, the festivals. So it's a very, very, very unfair advantage that the Palestinians had, the Hamas had, when they took over the land on October 7th. But right now, we just want to find a way to bring it to the end. As I mentioned on this show and many others, we want to find a way to avert the war. We want to find a way to bring it to an end. When you study strategy and military operations, there's this tacit knowledge that they talk about, and the inertial forces of war, that once a war starts, it is so hard to bring it to an end, because the sisters and brothers' blood has been left on that battlefield, and the people stand behind their government, whether they're wrong or right, to always advance. Whether they're right or wrong, they want to keep moving forward. So this is going to play out interesting as we move forward, because we're in a catch-22 right now. The gambit is, where do we end up at the end of this strategy execution play out, and where will we be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months from now, once everything does play out on this battlefield?
Thank you so much, Douglas J. Ernest. Good to talk to you, author, business owner, Corvette Warehouse. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon, sir.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, Stacy.
All right. Have a wonderful night. And coming up next, we have a new study exposing the severe side effects of the abortion pill. We'll take a look and see what the late Pope Francis had to say coming up next.
Listen up. You may know me as a musician, actor, devoted father, and husband. But before all that, I was just a kid from Newark who moved to South Central LA. And growing up, I learned a few things, like keeping your word and staying true to your friends no matter what. Loyalty is everything. That's why I have a plan through CarShield. CarShield keeps their promise to their customers, and that means everything to a guy like me, which is why you gotta call CarShield. My plan through CarShield covers costs of repairs of up to 5,000 parts on my car. I'm even talking big ticket items like the ones that make you groan when they break down, like your transmission, your engine, electronics, and computers.
If our car breaks down, CarShield administrators have our back.
Something happens, the CarShield administrators will be there to take care of it.
My rates never went up, and my coverage never went down.
When you call today, you'll get the CarShield guarantee, where your rate never goes up and your coverage never goes down, no matter how many claims you have.
Just like I said, CarShield is loyal to their customers just like I'm loyal to my crew. But don't just take it from me. Listen to what these people have to say.
If you love something, you protect it. That's why I called CarShield.
CarShield helped me save over $2,000.
Look, let me break it down for you. The average labor rate for a mechanic is over $120 an hour. That's on top of parts, diagnostics, and taxes, and can easily make the cost of an engine repair over $5,000. Now that's a lot of dough unless you call CarShield before your vehicle broke down. Not a lot of people in this world really do what they say they'll do, but CarShield is the real deal. Call CarShield today. Tell them I sent you.
If your car is out of warranty, you need protection with a plan through CarShield. It's not a matter of if, but when your car will break down. Make sure to call CarShield before it does.
Call 800-284-7826. 800-284-7826. 800-284-7826.